TechDaily.ai, your source for technical information. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a subject that's absolutely fundamental for the healthcare world: keeping patient data safe and ensuring systems can recover when things go wrong. It's definitely a high-stakes area. You've got constantly evolving rules and, well, increasingly sophisticated cyber threats to deal with.
That's right. Healthcare organizations face a really unique balancing act. On one hand, they need instant access to huge amounts of patient information just to provide care. But on the other, they're under intense pressure to comply with, numerous regulations.
And the amount of data is just exploding, isn't it?
Yeah.
EHRs, medical imaging.
Exactly, exploding data volumes. Plus, IT teams often have to manage a mix of personal and company devices, BYOD policies, and often with, let's be honest, limited resources and budgets.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Why is it so crucial for hospitals and clinics to have a rock-solid plan for business continuity and disaster recovery, what we often call BCDR?
Well, think of it this way. In healthcare, downtime isn't just an inconvenience. It can directly impact patient well-being. So a robust BCDR plan ensures that patient care can continue and the organization can still function effectively even during unexpected events, whether that's a natural disaster or just a technical failure.
And with electronic health records, the EHRs being so central now.
Absolutely. Access to what's known as protected health information, or PHI, is just essential for nearly every aspect of delivering care. So organizations have this profound responsibility to keep the sensitive data both secure and readily available.
It sounds like the pressure to maintain uptime to keep things running is even greater in healthcare than in, say, other industries.
Definitely. There's often a significant availability gap in healthcare IT. Clinicians, they expect immediate access to patient data, but the IT teams can sometimes struggle to restore services really quickly after an outage.
Is it true they face outages more often?
Yeah, what's quite striking is that healthcare servers actually tend to experience outages more frequently than in many other sectors. And this higher risk really underscores the critical need for well-thought-out BCDR strategies. Imagine a doctor trying to access a patient's history during an emergency and nothing. That highlights the real-world impact.
Wow, yeah. That paints a very clear picture of why this matters so much. Now let's talk about the rules of the road, regulations. IPO always comes up, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Because EHRs contain such sensitive information, there are, many regulations governing how private patient data must be handled. IP is probably the most well-known example in the U.S. And what's really important for listeners to be aware of is that the HIPAA security rule is expected to undergo some pretty significant updates in 2024.
Okay.
These proposed changes are specifically designed to strengthen cybersecurity for electronic PHI, the ePHI, largely in response to the growing number of cyber attacks targeting the healthcare industry.
So what are some of the key changes we should expect with this updated HIPAA security rule? What's different?
Well, one of the biggest shifts is a move towards much more consistent compliance. Right now, there's this distinction between what are called required and addressable implementation specifications. That's largely being removed.
Required and addressable.
Yeah.
What does that mean exactly?
So required meant you had to do it exactly as stated. Addressable gave organizations a bit more flexibility. They could implement the specified control, or if that wasn't reasonable, they could implement an equivalent alternative measure, provided they documented why.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so removing that distinction and also eliminating most of the exceptions to those rules means a much more standardized and rigorous approach to security across the board. Less wiggle room, basically.
That sounds like it will mean a lot more paperwork, more documentation for healthcare organizations.
It probably will, yes. The proposed rule significantly increases the requirements for written documentation. This includes the continued need for annual security audits, sure, but also much more detailed security policies and procedures, comprehensive plans for testing data security measures, and really thorough processes for incident response and analysis. The emphasis is really shifting towards having proactive documentation, to demonstrate compliance and show that you've really thought through your security measures.
What about the actual security measures themselves, the technical stuff? Are there stronger requirements coming there too?
Yes, definitely. Risk management mandates are being significantly strengthened. This includes a requirement for what's called system hardening.
System hardening.
Yeah, it's essentially the process of securing your IT systems by reducing their attack surface. Think of it like locking all the doors and windows of a building to eliminate potential entry points for threats. There will also be a requirement for vulnerability scanning at least twice a year to proactively find and fix security weaknesses.
Okay, twice a year.
And the detailed risk analysis that organizations need to conduct, that's being expanded. It needs to include not just external cyber threats, but also insider threats and risks posed by third-party vendors, your business associates.
That makes sense, covering all angles.
Right. And crucially, data encryption, both when it's being transmitted in transit and when it's stored at rest, will be mandatory with stricter enforcement on the methods used. Encryption is like scrambling a message so only someone with the right key can read it.
Those sound like some serious upgrades, for sure. What about when something does go wrong? A breach happens. Are there changes to how those need to be reported and handled?
Absolutely. The timelines for responding to security incidents are becoming much tighter. The proposed rule includes, for instance, a 72-hour requirement for data restoration, meaning organizations must restore access to and functionality of ePHI within that time frame after an incident.
72 hours. That's fast.
It is. And there's also a new requirement to notify authorities within 24 hours of any changes to access of ePHI, whether that access was authorized or not.
Wow, 24 hours for any access change.
Yes, and importantly, this also applies to business associates who handle PHI on behalf of healthcare providers, so that communication channel needs to be solid.
Okay. And it sounds like there's a greater need to really know what IT assets you have, what's on your network, and to check their security regularly.
That's exactly right. Regular asset inventories and security audits are being reinforced. Organizations will need to maintain an annual inventory of all their technology assets that handle ePHI. This includes having a detailed map of their network.
A network map.
Okay. And annual testing of security measures will be required to make sure they're still effective. Plus, there's a new mandate to annually verify that all your business associates are also meeting the necessary security standards. You have to check up on them.
Now, backup and recovery, obviously, that's at the heart of BCDR. Are there specific updates in the proposed IPA rule related to that?
Yes, there are definitely crucial updates proposed for backup and recovery. Organizations will need to conduct an annual review and, importantly, testing of their backup processes. It's not enough to just have backups. You need to prove you can reliably recover ePHI from them.
Testing is key.
Absolutely. And there's a requirement to put in place specific technical controls to ensure the integrity of backups. This is designed to prevent backups from being corrupted or compromised, say, by ransomware. And finally, there's a new emphasis on having a plan for prioritizing data restoration. Organizations will need formal procedures to determine which ePHI data needs to be recovered first in the event of an incident. You can't just restore everything randomly.
Makes sense. Critical systems first. And thinking about the long term, all this documentation, risk assessments, plans,
Yeah.
how long do healthcare organizations need to keep it all?
The HIPAA data retention policy specifies that certain key documents must be kept for 6 years. This includes things like your risk assessments and analysis, your disaster recovery and contingency plans, records of physical security maintenance, documentation of any breach notifications you've had to send, and, of course, your business associate agreements, BAAs.
6 years. Okay, good to know. So with this evolving regulatory landscape, particularly IPO, firmly in mind, what are the most important things healthcare organizations should be doing now to build a really strong BCDR environment? Where do you start?
Right. The very first step really is to perform a comprehensive IT health check of your current BCDR setup, like getting a physical for your IT. This involves a detailed risk assessment to understand your vulnerabilities, looking closely at your IT system performance, doing a thorough check of your backup integrity, are those backups actually usable, and evaluating your ability to restore data and systems effectively.
So really understanding where you stand today.
Exactly. You need to identify all the applications that are critical to your operations. Then, calculate both the clinical and financial risks if those applications were to go down. You also need to clearly document your current backup and recovery procedures. Figure out your recovery time objectives, RTOs, how fast you need systems back online, and your recovery point objectives, RPOs basically, how much data you can tolerate losing.
RTO and RPO. Got it.
And then, crucially, identify any gaps between your current capabilities and those desired targets. Finally, make sure your procedures for handling actual downtime are well documented, staff are trained, and you test them regularly. Fire drills, but for IT.
That initial assessment sounds like a lot of work, but I can see how it's absolutely necessary groundwork. What comes next after that?
Following that assessment, it's vital to conduct an impact analysis, a business impact analysis, or BIA. This helps you figure out which BCDR functions are the absolute most critical for your specific organization. It helps you prioritize. This analysis will also help inform your strategy for potentially adopting cloud technologies for BCDR, if that's a route you're considering.
How does it inform the cloud strategy?
Well, the impact analysis should look at a wide range of factors. The financial impact of downtime, your personnel resources, technology requirements, how downtime affects your day-to-day business processes, compliance obligations, security needs, the impact on patient care, even opportunities for innovation. Understanding these impacts helps you decide what level of protection and potentially what type of cloud service makes sense for different parts of your operation.
Okay, so once you have that clear understanding of what's most important and the potential impacts, how do you actually start designing the BCDR solution itself?
The next step is to define your solution requirements in detail. And this really needs input from both your business stakeholders, the clinical side, administrative side, and your IT teams. Everyone needs to be involved.
Makes sense. Get everyone on the same page.
Exactly. You'll need to specify your target RTOs and RPOs for each critical application. Maybe some need faster recovery than others. You need to list any specific backup requirements for certain applications, outline the regulatory requirements that will apply to cloud providers if you're looking at cloud solutions like needing that BAA we mentioned.
Right, the business associate agreement.
Yeah. Plus, the necessity for data encryption in transit at rest. Your expectations for how often BCDR systems will be tested, timelines for getting the solution up and running, and any desired features like maybe the ability to securely share PHI or perform very specific granular data restores, not just entire systems. And of course, you have to outline your resource and budget constraints.
So a very detailed shopping list, essentially.
Pretty much, yes. A well-defined blueprint.
And with those detailed requirements in hand, how do healthcare organizations start to evaluate the different technology options out there, especially thinking about the cloud?
That's where you start matching your needs to the different cloud deployment models available specifically for BCDR. The cloud offers several main options. There's infrastructure as a service, or IaaS. That basically gives you a remote place, the infrastructure, to store backups, but you typically manage the backup software and processes yourself.
Okay, like renting the hardware.
Kind of, yes. Then there's backup as a service, or BUFBS. Here, a provider takes care of the entire backup solution for you. Often includes the software, storage, management, and sometimes the ability to failover, meaning run your systems in the cloud temporarily in an emergency.
More of a managed service then.
Exactly. And finally, there's cloud replication, sometimes called disaster recovery as a service, or DRaaS. This involves continuously, or very frequently, updating a copy of your critical systems in the cloud so you can recover very, very quickly if your primary site goes down.
Almost like a hot spare site.
Pretty much, yes. The best model, or often it's a combination of these, will depend entirely on your specific recovery goals, those RTOs and RPOs, and how much control you need or want over the systems versus handing it off to a provider.
And if a healthcare organization decides, okay, a cloud-based solution looks like the way to go for our BCDR, what are the most important things they should look for when choosing a vendor? It feels like a critical choice.
Oh, it's absolutely crucial. Choosing the right vendor is paramount. Key things to consider include, does the vendor have a strong track record and specific expertise in the healthcare industry? Do they understand HIPAA compliance deeply? Are they willing to sign a comprehensive business associate agreement? That's non-negotiable.
Experience in healthcare is key.
Definitely. Look for data center certifications, things like SOC2 Type 2, maybe HIPAA Trio Rest. These are like seals of approval showing the data center meets specific security and operational standards. Gives you confidence in their infrastructure. Service level agreements, SLAs, are essential. These should clearly guarantee things like response times and, importantly, RTO and RPO targets that align with your risk assessment and requirements.
Get those guarantees in writing?
Precisely. You'll also want to ensure they provide 24/7 support, ideally support staff who understand the specific pressures and needs of healthcare. Can they easily scale up their services as your data inevitably grows? Do they offer a proof of concept, a trial run, so you can test their solution before committing fully?
A test drive, good idea.
Yeah. And it's also wise to ask if they can work with your existing storage investments, maybe integrate somehow, and of course, confirm they provide robust data encryption capabilities both at rest and in transit.
That's a solid checklist. It really sounds like the cloud has become a major player, maybe even the dominant one in modern BCDR strategies for healthcare.
It has absolutely transformed the landscape, no question. We've seen a significant shift towards using the cloud for healthcare data backup and recovery. It's driven by both the enhanced security measures offered by reputable cloud providers. They often have resources small organizations can't match, and just the sheer volume of data healthcare organizations now have to manage. On-premise is getting harder to scale.
And what are some of the specific advantages, the big wins that the cloud brings to BCDR in the healthcare sector?
Well, the benefits are pretty significant. As we've touched on, it can actually simplify meeting HIPAA and high-tech requirements if you work with providers who specialize in healthcare compliance and offer those BAAs. The cloud often enables much better recovery objectives. You can often achieve faster RTOs and more frequent RPOs using cloud tech, which minimizes both downtime and potential data loss.
Better performance, potentially.
Often, yes. Operationally, it shifts costs. You move from large upfront capital investments in hardware CapEx to more predictable monthly operating expenses OpEx. That can be attractive from a budget perspective. Cloud platforms also offer rapid deployment and incredible scalability. You can spin up resources or add capacity much faster than buying and installing physical hardware.
Agility is a big plus.
Huge. And perhaps one of the biggest advantages for many healthcare IT teams is that it allows them to offload the significant burden and complexity of managing their own physical data centers. They can focus more on clinical applications and user support.
Get out of the data center business, as they say.
Exactly.
But I know security is always the top concern, the big question mark, when talking about putting sensitive data like PHI in the cloud.
It's a very valid concern, and it should be top of mind. The concept of multi-tenancy, where multiple customers might share the same underlying physical infrastructure in the cloud, understandably raises questions about data isolation.
Right. Is my data truly separate?
It's a fair question. However, it's important to understand that the technologies for secure multi-tenancy have advanced significantly. Reputable cloud providers use sophisticated methods, logical isolation, strong encryption, access controls to provide robust protection for sensitive PHI. So, moving to the cloud can be a secure option, often even more secure than what an organization could achieve on its own, provided you choose the right provider and configure things correctly.
Due diligence is key there.
Absolutely.
Now, we really can't talk about data protection in today's environment without specifically addressing ransomware. It seems like healthcare is constantly in the crosshairs. How does that threat factor into healthcare BCDR planning?
You're right, ransomware is an absolutely critical consideration. It has to be woven into the fabric of any BCDR strategy today, especially given how heavily the healthcare sector has been targeted. So, a strong BCDR strategy must incorporate robust ransomware protection measures. This isn't just about recovery after an attack, it's also about prevention and detection.
Proactive defense.
Exactly. Implementing proactive threat defense tools, using solutions specifically designed for detecting ransomware behavior early, and having clear plans for incident response are vital. But perhaps most crucially from a BCDR perspective is adopting what are known as immutable backups.
Immutable backups. What does that mean?
It means the backup data, once written, cannot be altered or deleted for a set period, not even by an administrator, and certainly not by ransomware. This provides a vital layer of enhanced protection against malicious attacks. Even if your primary systems and maybe even your regular backups get compromised, you have this clean, untouchable copy you can restore from. Think of it as a worm: copyright once, read many.
That sounds incredibly valuable against ransomware.
It's becoming almost essential, honestly.
Okay, and just thinking broadly about backup solutions, when it comes down to the specifics of choosing one, are there any final thoughts on what healthcare organizations should prioritize, beyond just features and cost?
Well, selecting the right backup solution is a complex decision, as we said. Cost, features, vendor support, they all matter. But it's also important to remember that availability gap we talked about earlier, the difference between how quickly users expect data back and how quickly IT can actually deliver it. That's a key challenge in healthcare. So when evaluating solutions, look specifically for those designed to address this gap. Solutions that offer faster, more reliable recovery options, perhaps with features specifically tailored to the unique demands and compliance needs of the healthcare environment. Don't just look at generic backup tools.
Got it. Focus on solutions that understand healthcare-specific pressures. This has been an incredibly valuable discussion, really covered a lot of ground. To summarize for everyone listening, what are the absolute key takeaways? If you're in healthcare IT, What do you need to remember from this deep dive?
Okay, the key takeaways are these. First, the regulatory landscape, particularly with the upcoming HIPAA updates, is constantly changing and requires your close, ongoing attention. You can't set it and forget it. Second, a comprehensive BCDR plan is no longer optional. It's a fundamental necessity. And it has to include physical, technical, and administrative safeguards. It's holistic. Third, embracing the cloud can offer significant advantages for BCDR in healthcare scalability, cost effectiveness, potentially better RTORPO. But it's crucial to carefully evaluate your specific needs and choose the right healthcare savvy vendor. Do your homework. And finally, given the current threat environment, robust ransomware protection, including the use of those immutable backups we discussed, is absolutely essential. It needs to be a core part of your strategy.
That's a really clear and actionable summary. Thanks for breaking it all down. And for you, our listener, here's a final thought to chew on. Take a really critical look at your own organization's current BCDR preparedness. How ready are you really? Consider how the best practices and the upcoming changes we've discussed today can be applied in your environment to strengthen your defenses. Ultimately, it's about ensuring both the security of your critical data and, just as importantly, the continuity of vital patient care, especially in the face of these ever-increasing challenges. This podcast is sponsored by Stonefly, your trusted solution provider and advisor in enterprise storage, backup, disaster recovery, hyper-converged and VMware, Hyper-V, Proxmox Cluster, AI servers, SA365, a turnkey security appliance, and public and private cloud. Check out stonefly.com or email your project requirements to sales@stonefly.com.